I should have known something was wrong the moment my phone buzzed with that brittle Slack notification. Just one line from our infrastructure lead dropped into the urgent channel. "Hey, Alexis, did you mean to revoke your own admin access?" I was standing in the dim hallway outside a conference room in Midtown Manhattan, the kind where the glass walls are too clean and the carpet smells like industrial cleaning spray. My palms were still a little sweaty from pitching to Sequoia 15 minutes earlier. My heart was still racing. And yet, the second I saw that message, everything inside me went still, like someone had hit mute on my entire nervous system. I typed back fast, pretending my hands weren't trembling. "No, don't touch anything. I'll look." I opened my laptop right there in the hallway, people brushing past me, their colognes mixing into a swirl of citrus and musk. My screen glowed too bright. I pulled up our permissions console, blinking hard. And that was when I saw it. My admin access hadn't been revoked accidentally. It had been replaced, overwritten, by a role I didn't recognize. Ops Root Director. I whispered it aloud without meaning to, and the sound of my own voice startled me. I tasted something sharp, like copper, at the back of my tongue. The kind of taste that shows up when your nervous system jumps ahead of your logic. There was only one person who could have created a new top-level role without telling me. Andre, my COO, my partner, my second in command. The same man who used to joke that he'd follow me into any fire. The same man who told reporters, "Alexis sees the future, we just build it." The same man who sat across from me 3 years ago in a tiny Atlanta coffee shop and swore he wanted to build something real, not political. I refreshed the screen. And then I saw the timestamps. The role was created the night before, well past midnight, while I was flying to New York, while I was preparing to meet the investors who would decide if we hit the next level or crash on the runway. I clicked deeper. My breath hitched. A series of files sat inside a locked folder tagged simply, "Notes." Each file had a short description, like someone jotting ideas for a presentation. But one of them made my stomach twist. Investors' transition plan. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The hallway noise blurred. A man's voice echoed faintly through a conference room door behind me, someone laughing too loudly. And in my head, the only thing I could hear was Andre's voice from last week. "Casual, too casual. Go crush your meetings. I'll hold things down here." I clicked the file. And there it was, his voice, recorded, talking to someone I knew too well, a partner at a rival logistics startup we'd beaten for our biggest contract last year. Andre sounded calm. Confident, almost rehearsed. He said my name like it was a liability. He described himself as the one who really understood operations. He talked about replacing me as CEO smoothly, with minimal noise. My throat tightened. I couldn't swallow. People walked past me, chatting about lunch meetings and product demos, but I couldn't hear any of it. All I could hear was the sound of betrayal playing softly through my headphones, as if it were a podcast, as if it weren't my life. And then I heard the one line that made everything inside me go silent, cold, focused. "She'll be too distracted on this fundraising trip to notice anything." Too distracted. Too distracted. My fingers dug into the edges of my laptop. I don't know how long I stood there, but I know exactly when the clarity hit, like a sheet of glass sliding into place. He was planning to take my company. The hallway outside that Midtown conference room faded as I walked, fast and shaky, toward the elevators. I didn't even remember pressing the button, just the low, mechanical ding echoing too loudly in my ears. The air inside the elevator felt colder than it should have, like it had been sitting empty all day. I leaned back against the mirrored wall, watching my reflection flicker with the movement of the lights, my eyes too wide, my breath too thin. The doors closed, sealing me in with the sound of my own heart pounding. I replayed Andre's voice again. Quiet, smooth, practiced. The way he said transition plan like it was a simple operational update. The way he told that rival founder Liam, smug Liam with his venture daddy confidence, that I'd be better positioned as chief visionary officer once Series B closed. As if I didn't build this damn company from my living room floor. As if I didn't plan out every contingency, every contract, every infrastructure map myself. When the elevator doors opened into the lobby, warm air hit me. That familiar scent of overbrewed coffee and lobby flowers that always made me think of airports. I pulled out my phone and texted our infrastructure lead. "Don't mention what you saw to anyone yet. I'll handle it." 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then, okay, should I be worried? I stared at his message a long moment. I wanted to type yes. I wanted to type everything. Instead, no, not yet. A lie, but one that bought me time. I stepped outside. The sidewalk noise hit instantly. Taxis honking, someone arguing on the phone, the rustle of wind between tall buildings. I walked without thinking, letting the motion burn off the shaking in my hands. I kept hearing his voice. She'll be too distracted on this fundraising trip. That smug certainty, like he knew me, like he'd already counted on me being predictable. I needed air. I needed space. I ended up ducking into a tiny coffee shop on the corner, one with old brick walls and a chalkboard menu that never looked fully erased. The smell of espresso and steamed milk wrapped around me like a blanket I didn't ask for. I slid into a corner table, my back against the wall, needing that small sense of protection. My bag thudded onto the wooden chair. My laptop screen glowed again. I opened another file in the folder, this one labeled simply VC calls. My pulse stumbled. Inside was a list of names, investors I was scheduled to meet this week, investors who thought they were talking to me next. Andre had called 4 of them already. 4! My stomach dropped as I saw the notes written below each call. Push narrative of Alexis being spread too thin. Highlight operational inefficiencies under her leadership. Discuss alternative leadership model for scale. My chest tightened, not the dramatic kind, but that slow, bruising kind that makes you aware of every breath, every swallow. I pressed my fingers against my eyes and exhaled through my teeth. Outside counsel flashed into my mind. Dorsey and Haynes, the ones who handled our Series A paperwork. The partner there, Brenner, was sharp but cautious. He'd tell me to wait, to gather more proof, to move strategically. But this wasn't a legal problem, not yet. This was a takeover, a surgical dismantling of my credibility and authority while I was 900 miles from home. And standing in the coffee shop, surrounded by strangers stirring milk and tapping keyboards, I felt that thin blade of loneliness slice through me. That moment founders never talk about. The moment when you realize the person you trusted most has been quietly sharpening a knife behind your back. I grabbed my phone and opened my contacts, scrolled, paused. My thumb hovered over a name I hadn't tapped in months, not since she left the company for a cybersecurity firm in Chicago. Riley! We'd built our early compliance protocols together. She knew our systems. She knew me. And more importantly, she wasn't afraid of getting her hands dirty with the kind of digital fingerprints someone like Andre would try to hide. My thumb hesitated. I wasn't ready to say the words aloud yet. I wasn't ready to admit how deep the betrayal went, but my instincts overrode the shame. I sent her a text, need a friend, and someone who knows the old audit logs. You free tonight? I stared at the screen. Seconds passed, then my phone buzzed. Where are you? I'll come to you and bring coffee. This sounds like a long one. My eyes stung before I could stop it. Not tears, just the pressure of relief mixed with humiliation, a cocktail I'd tasted too many times in this industry. I closed my laptop, heartbeat steadier now. The noise of the cafe blurred into something softer, almost manageable. I gathered my things and stood, because now I knew exactly what I had to do. But first, I had to tell Riley everything. I stepped back out into the New York air, the kind that feels closer to steam than oxygen, and let it fill my lungs as if it could steady me. The late afternoon sun glared off the windshields of taxis crowding the curb. Somewhere behind me, a barista shouted a drink order. Feet slacked the pavement in every direction. It was all motion, and I felt frozen inside it. I headed toward my hotel, 10 blocks, maybe more, but walking kept my legs from shaking. Each step felt like I was pacing inside my own head, replaying Andre's voice. I couldn't stop hearing him, that smooth, reasoned tone he used when he wanted to sound thoughtful. Grounded, leaderly, like he'd trained himself to speak in LinkedIn-ready bullet points. I pressed the crosswalk button, the cool metal grounding against my thumb. The light changed, and a cluster of people moved with me. I didn't want to be part of the pack, but my brain was too full to care. His words, transition plan, operational continuity. She spread too thin, looped until I felt something hot coil in my stomach. Not panic, not even grief. Anger, real, bone-deep anger, the kind that made everything sharpen in my peripheral vision. Inside the hotel lobby, the air smelled faintly like lemon polish and old carpet. I threaded my way past a cluster of tourists and made it to the elevators, pushing the button harder than necessary. The ride-up was quiet, save for the soft whir of cables and the faint hum overhead. When the doors opened, I walked to my room and locked it behind me with a sharp click. The room's fake warm lighting flickered. Someone had left the AC too high, and the air felt thinly cold, like it couldn't decide between hotel chill and human heat. I set my bag down, pulled out my laptop, and dropped onto the bed without bothering to unlace my shoes. The mattress bounced lightly beneath me, the comforter smelling like detergent and bleach. I clicked open the file again. Andre's voice played, and this time I listened like a surgeon studying an X-ray. No denial, no disbelief, just analysis. He wasn't improvising. Every phrase landed like he'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. operational handoff, founder burnout risk, stability optics, words that sounded benign unless you knew what they looked like in motion, namely, a founder shoved out of her own company under the guise of maturity. I scrubbed a hand over my face. I knew how this playbook worked. I'd seen it used on other founders who looked like me. They were always framed as too emotional, too passionate, too distracted. Meanwhile, the man riding their work to a liquidity event suddenly became the steady operator. The AC kicked on overhead, a low mechanical groan. I breathed out slowly. My chest wasn't tight anymore, not exactly, but my ribs felt like someone had cinched them one notch too tight. My phone buzzed. Riley, landing at LaGuardia now. Give me an address. I blinked. Fast. She'd gotten on a plane? Immediately? I typed back. I'm at the Maven Hotel on 54th, room 1916. Seconds later, on my way. I closed the laptop and let the silence settle around me. I'd almost forgotten what support felt like. Real support, not performative founder. I've got your back, nonsense, but someone who acted without question. Someone who remembered the early nights building error handling routines and laughed when we accidentally broke staging together. A sharp knock startled me. Too soon. Couldn't be her. I approached the door slowly, looked through the peephole, and nearly sagged with relief. Her hair was longer, pulled into a high puff. She wore a charcoal blazer over a hoodie, and she held 2 coffees in one hand like a woman who had already anticipated the kind of night this would be. I opened the door. She stepped inside, looked at my face for exactly 1 second, and said, "Who fucked you over?" The words were so blunt, so familiar, my chest cracked open. Riley? No, seriously, she said, kicking the door closed behind her. Tell me who, because you only text me like that when the world is on fire. I handed her my laptop. Play the 3rd file, I said. My voice sounded tight, too thin for my throat. About halfway in. She set the coffees down, opened the machine, clicked, and listened. I watched her face change. First confusion, then suspicion, then disbelief, then something dark and furious. When the recording ended, she looked up at me. That's Andre. My throat tightened. Yes, he's trying to stage a coup. Her voice had gone quiet in that dangerous way she kept reserved for real threats. He called the VCs already? Yes, she swore under her breath, soft, vicious. Okay, we're not panicking, we're planning. She sat beside me, knees brushing mine, and pulled the laptop closer. Show me everything. For the first time since that file opened, I didn't feel alone. The room hummed with the faint AC and the deeper hum of purpose, focused, sharp, shared. She scanned the logs, her brows drawing tighter. This is sloppy, she muttered. Not stupid, but sloppy. He thought the permissions rewrite would hide his tracks, but the metadata on those recordings is untouched. Amateur hour. Her eyes flicked to me, steady and sure. We can nail him, but we do it right. I exhaled slowly, feeling my pulse steady with hers. Where do we start? I asked. Riley smiled. Small, fierce, exactly the smile I needed. Simple, she said. We start by assuming he's already lying about everything. I stayed very still for a moment, letting Riley's words settle into the space between us. Her confidence had a gravity to it, steady, bold, familiar. I'd seen her tear apart entire audit trails before, tracing anomalies like she was following threads in a tapestry only she could see. Having her here changed everything. It put a floor beneath my feet when I'd been free-falling all day. Riley set her elbows on her knees, fingers flying across my keyboard. Let's pull permissions history first, she murmured. If he elevated himself without proper justification, that's strike 1. Then we grab device signatures, strike 2. Then we find whatever else he left lying around because no one who talks that arrogantly on a recorded call is covering his tracks properly. I watched her scroll through logs with sharp, practiced movements. The soft glow of the laptop lit her face, highlighting the small scar on her cheek from that time she'd fallen asleep at her desk and hit the metal corner. I hadn't thought about that night in years. Funny how betrayal drags the past to the surface. Who stood with you? Who disappeared? Who mattered? What's his angle? She asked without looking at me. Replacing me, I said, before Series B closes. But why now? She tapped the keyboard harder, jaw tightening. You two were fine 6 months ago. Were we? I leaned back, the bed sinking beneath my weight. He started pushing more aggressive ops targets, calling me a bottleneck in meetings, telling investors he was the one who kept everything on track. Riley made a low sound, the kind she made when she found mold behind a wall. Classic COO coup behavior. I laughed, short, humorless. Didn't know there was a category. There is, she said, and he fits it. She paused suddenly, her eyes narrowed. What? I leaned forward. She rotated the screen toward me. He's been rewriting access keys over the last 2 weeks, every 48 hours on the dot. That's not maintenance, that's crafting an escape tunnel. A cold ripple rolled beneath my skin. So he was planning this even before I flew here. Oh, absolutely, she said, and he thought you'd be too busy smiling at BCs to notice. Amateur mistake. She sat back, folding her arms. We're not just looking at betrayal, we're looking at premeditation. The word hit harder than I expected. Something shifted in my gut, firming into resolve. Okay, I said. So how do we prove it without tipping him off? Riley smirked. You're lucky I got bored and joined a forensics firm. We'll build a mirror environment, clone the logs, create read-only snapshots so he can't retroactively scrub anything. Then we trace call metadata, cross-reference with the times he updated permissions. If those overlap, open and shut case. I breathed out slowly. The board will have to listen. Oh, they'll listen, she said. They just won't like what they hear. The room fell quiet for a second. The low whir from the AC filled the silence. My heartbeat steadied, syncing with the quiet hum of her determination. Alexis, she said softly, you know this isn't your fault, right? My eyes dropped to my hands. I trusted him. Yeah, and he exploited it. That's on him, not you. But I couldn't quite believe that yet. Not fully. My chest felt tight, like my ribs were trying to fold inward. Because deep down, a whisper kept threading through me. How did you miss this? How did you let him get this close? Riley nudged my arm. Hey, don't disappear on me. I'm not, I said quietly. Just recalibrating. She nodded. Good. Because we're not done. She spun the laptop back toward her and opened another file, one I hadn't even dared look at yet, the one labeled Transition Script. I sucked in a breath. Riley clicked it. For a beat, all I heard was static, distant chatter, a room tone I didn't recognize. Then, Andre's voice slid through the speakers again, smooth as polished steel. Investors don't want chaos, he was saying. They want a story they can believe in. I'll frame it as Alexis needing space to focus on product. She'll agree publicly. It'll look collaborative. The casual certainty in his tone snapped something inside me, like a cable snapping under tension. Riley hit pause. Slowly, she turned her head toward me. Alexis, she said, voice low and firm, we're going to bury him. She didn't say it with vengeance. She said it with truth. I leaned back against the headboard, the room spinning a little from the weight of it all. But beneath the spinning was something steadier, something sharp, something alive. Then let's start, I said. Riley cracked her knuckles like a pianist preparing for a concert. We're pulling every artifact he touched in the last 30 days, she said. Build the trap now, spring it later. Her fingers flew again. The AC kept cycling on and off like it couldn't decide whether to comfort or haunt me, each shift in temperature brushing across my arms in a way that made my skin feel too aware. Riley's fingers tapped steadily against the keys, the rhythm sharp and sure, like each keystroke was stitching a tighter net around the truth. My thoughts, on the other hand, were fraying. Alexis, her voice cut through the static in my head. I blinked, realizing I'd been staring at the condensation on the coffee cup like it could tell me how this was all supposed to end. You good? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Feels like the ground keeps shifting, she softened. Then we anchor ourselves with facts, and right now, the facts are on your side. The problem was, facts didn't stop damage. They only proved it after the bleeding had started. My phone vibrated. A message from Brenner, our outside counsel. He'd finally responded to the voicemail I left earlier. Call me when you can. Need clarity. I stared at the words. Clarity. I'd asked for help. I'd given him a sliver of trust, and the best he could offer me was a polite request for clarity. Riley noticed my expression darken. Who was that? Legal, I said. Wants to know what's going on. You told him? No, I barely said anything. Good, she said. Keep it that way. I frowned. He's our counsel. And he also represents the board, she reminded me, which means he'll mirror their risk tolerance. And right now, you don't have evidence packaged clean enough for him to stick his neck out. The words hit harder than I wanted them to, because she was right. And because I suddenly felt the weight of a truth I hadn't let myself fully acknowledge, I was holding my company together alone. I stood too fast, the world tilting as my hands found the edge of the desk. I walked to the window, pressing my palm to the cold glass. The city below was a moving constellation, cars pulsing in long streams, streetlights glowing like constellations trapped between concrete. How long do you think he's been planning this? I asked quietly. Riley leaned back in the chair, crossing her arms. Weeks, months, maybe longer. But that doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me. Why? Because if I missed this, I whispered, what else did I miss? Silence stretched for a moment. Then she spoke gently. Alexis, founders aren't omniscient. You trusted someone who knew exactly how to exploit that trust. That's not failure, that's betrayal. My throat tightened. Feels the same. No, she said, it doesn't. Betrayal is something done to you. Failure is something you do to yourself. There's a difference. I pressed my forehead to the glass. It was colder than I expected. My breath fogged a small crescent against it. I called Aaron earlier, I admitted. One of the board members tried to tell him something felt off. Riley stiffened. And? I turned, leaning against the window. He said I might be under stress. That founders close to big fundraising milestones sometimes misinterpret things. He told me to get rest. Riley's eyes went flat. He dismissed you. He dismissed the possibility that Andre could be doing anything wrong, I said. He practically defended him. That means Andre already set a narrative, she said. Probably weeks ago. I sank onto the edge of the bed, rubbing my temples. The faint scent of the hotel detergent hit my nose, a sterile, too bright smell that made my chest constrict. So what you're telling me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, is that the board won't believe me until I have evidence airtight enough to choke on. Riley didn't soften this time. Exactly. It landed like a blow, because that meant every call Andre had made, every subtle cut, every whispered suggestion to investors about my supposed limitations, none of it mattered unless I could prove it. He was already ahead of me in the narrative war. What do I do? I asked, and it scared me how small my voice sounded. Riley turned the laptop toward herself again. You don't do anything reckless, she said firmly. You don't confront him. You don't alert legal. You don't make noise. She looked at me, eyes razor sharp. You gather. You prepare. You let him think he's winning. My pulse jumped. Riley, listen, she said. You hit him too early. He wipes everything. Every call log, every attempt at sabotage, every breadcrumb. You hit him now, and you look paranoid. You hit him now, and you become the story. Her voice low, controlled, precise. But if you wait, if you let him walk deeper into his own trap, she held up a folder she'd already created on my desktop. Evidence, working copy, then you get justice, she said, not just revenge. I swallowed hard. Because I realized something in that moment, something that made my chest tighten and my breath catch. No one was coming to save me. No one believed me. And if I didn't handle this myself, I could lose everything I built. Slowly, deliberately, I nodded. Okay, I said quietly, then we do this ourselves. Riley gave a short, fierce smile. Good, because this is just the beginning. But behind her certainty, behind the adrenaline pumping through my body, a darker thought slipped in. One I didn't say out loud. The night stretched on in that quiet, hotel room, way-thin walls, muted hallway footsteps, the occasional elevator bell drifting through like a reminder that the world outside was still moving while mine had come to a halt. Riley dimmed the laptop screen slightly, letting the glow soften against the beige walls. She'd pulled her hair up higher, a gesture I'd learned meant she was settling in for a long haul. We'd been combing through logs for almost an hour when my phone buzzed again. Another message from Brenner. Alexis, I have 15 minutes free. Want to jump on a call? Riley glanced up at the change in my expression. Don't answer it. He's expecting me to, I said. I left him a whole voicemail. Riley snorted. He's expecting you to go quiet, and when you get quiet, you get safer. Right now, the worst thing you could do is give half a story to someone who doesn't trust your instincts. I stared at the text a moment longer. It wasn't wrong. Legally, ethically, tactically, she had every point nailed down. But it still stung, knowing I couldn't turn to the people I was supposed to rely on, supposed to pay for protection, supposed to trust. I put the phone face down on the table and exhaled slowly. Good, Riley said. Now let's see what else he tripped over. She clicked open another tray system access logs from the week before I left for New York. The pattern hit me immediately. Late-night access windows, same IP block, same cadence, a rhythm of intrusion, every 2 days, like clockwork. Who does anything every 48 hours, I murmured. Someone building a shadow infrastructure, she said. He was prepping for a control transfer, getting himself positioned to reroute authority without flagging admin alerts? My chest tightened. So he really wanted me out. Oh, absolutely. She rotated the screen toward me. This is orchestration, not impulse. The words made something inside me curl in on itself, half grief, half rage. I got up and paced the room, the cheap carpet rough against my soles even through my socks. The smell of industrial cleaner clung to the curtains, and every inhale made my throat sting. I stopped by the desk and leaned my hands on the wooden surface. The faint vibration of the AC unit hummed beneath my palms. Riley, what if he's already talked to the entire board? She didn't even flinch. He has. The bluntness of it almost knocked me back. You don't know that. I do, she said calmly. That's how these plays work. You soften the ground first, whisper concerns about leadership, play the loyal lieutenant, paint the founder as visionary but overwhelmed. By the time you make your move, everyone's halfway convinced you're the adult in the room. I closed my eyes, jaw tightening, because she was right. And because I could hear Andre's voice in every board meeting over the past 6 months, subtle, careful, engineering an image of himself as the steady hand. And the board will want to believe him, Riley went on. He's predictable. You're you. I gave a bitter laugh. A black woman founder who doesn't apologize for being smarter than the men in the room. She nodded. Exactly. I sank onto the edge of the bed again, rubbing my arms. The room felt colder now, like the AC had given up pretending it cared about my comfort. What if, I began slowly, I'm wrong? What if all of this is coincidence, miscommunication, a misunderstanding? Riley stared at me for a long moment. That's the part of you he's counting on, she said softly. That voice, that self-doubt, that instinct to blame yourself before you blame him. My eyes burned, not tears, pressure, the kind that builds behind your ribs and squeezes until everything feels too tight. What if I'm making this bigger than it is, I whispered. What if it's just stress, founder paranoia? What if I'm overreacting? Riley closed the laptop gently. Alexis, she said, leaning forward, elbows on her knees, voice steady as stone. Look at me. I lifted my eyes. You're not imagining this. You're not paranoid. You're not unstable. You're not reading ghosts into shadows. He is betraying you. You found evidence, real evidence. And the only reason you're doubting that is because you've been conditioned to doubt yourself whenever your instincts threaten someone else's power. Something inside me cracked quietly, like the soft snap of a worn thread. I covered my face with both hands. For a moment, the darkness was comforting. My breath came slow, trembling. I heard her move beside me, not touching, just close. When I lowered my hands, she was watching me with that familiar, fierce steadiness. You're allowed to feel this, she said, but you don't get to let it stop you. My throat tightened. So what now? Now, Riley said, reopening the laptop, we gather enough evidence that no board member, no lawyer, no rival founder, and definitely not Andre can spin a single piece of this. She clicked open a new window, metadata extraction tools, file lineage trackers, cross-referencing scripts. The glow lit her face again. And then, she said, when the time is right, we drop it. I swallowed hard. But until then, she added, you act normal. You stay quiet. You keep your schedule. Don't flinch. Don't warn him. Don't let him know you see the knife he's holding. I nodded slowly, the weight of the reality settling across my shoulders like wet cloth. Because, she said, her voice low, deliberate, if he even suspects you know, he'll erase everything. The words landed heavy, final. The decision hit me in a single, clear note, like a tuning fork struck deep in my chest. It didn't come with fanfare or revelation. It didn't come with tears or anger or the kind of cinematic inner monologue founders pretend they have when everything is falling apart. It came quietly, cleanly, a pivot point where panic burned off and instinct took over. I looked at Riley over the glow of the laptop screen, the soft blue light flickering across her face. Her expression was focused, almost serene. Someone who'd navigated too many disasters to ever be rattled by another one. She'd rolled up the sleeves of her hoodie, revealing the tattoo on her left forearm, a geometric line design she always said represented break, then rebuild. It felt like a message. We're doing this, I said. She didn't smile. She just nodded once, a simple, solid acknowledgement. Good, then let's map the battlefield. My breath settled. Something steadier took root under my sternum. I pulled the desk chair closer, sitting beside her so our elbows bunked. The contact grounded me. She opened a new slate of windows. Access logs, comm trails, anomalous activity reports we'd exported before anything could be erased. She clicked with clinical precision, like she was stitching together a crime scene reconstruction. You see here, she said, pointing to a timestamp cluster from the week before. He modified access tokens, then joined a video call 30 minutes later. That alignment is too tight to be coincidence. A cold pulse hit the back of my neck. He was coordinating. More than coordinating, she murmured. He was rehearsing. The word made my skin prickle. I leaned in closer as she highlighted another pattern. Permissions escalations right after I announced I'd be traveling for the fundraising meetings. My absence had become his opportunity window. Every log told a story of calculated moves, deliberate steps toward an outcome he'd decided mattered more than loyalty, more than our partnership, more than the company we built together from a Google Doc and a whiteboard in my old living room. I swallowed hard, the taste of burnt hotel coffee still lingering on my tongue. I can't believe I didn't see it sooner. Riley didn't look away from the screen. Yes, you can. That stung. What does that mean? It means, she said, turning to me now, you believed he was who he told you he was, and believing the wrong person doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. I looked down at my hand, steady now, unexpectedly. I should have been more careful. You should have been able to trust him, she corrected, but that's not the world we're in. The lights buzzed softly overhead. A siren wailed faintly several blocks away, fading fast. The city kept moving while my world redrew itself line by line. What do we do first? I asked. Riley cracked her knuckles again and dragged two windows into side-by-side view. First, she said, we clone the logs, everything, all of it. If he wiped the originals, we still have immutable versions. She began setting up a remote mirror environment, her fingers a blur. Next, we track every call to that rival founder, cross-reference with his role changes. Then we scrape meeting metadata and calendar fragments. People forget their calendars leak timestamps too. I exhaled, tension leaving me in a slow wave. She wasn't building a case. She was constructing a timeline, a story, the truth captured in data footprints that even Andre couldn't rewrite. And after that, I asked. She stopped typing and looked at me directly. After that, we commit, she said. Fully, you can't get squeamish 3 steps in. You can't second guess. You can't worry about fallout. Justice takes clarity. Revenge takes discipline. I'm not sure this is revenge, I said quietly, her expression softened. It doesn't have to be, but whichever it is, you're not doing it alone. Something inside me loosened, just a fraction, but the space it created was enough to breathe differently. Enough to remember that alliances didn't have to be fragile. Some could be rebuilt stronger. I sat beside her, the quiet whir of the laptop's fan filling the space between our breaths. Outside, headlights streaked across the hotel curtains, slanted gold lines passing like ghosts. My pulse synced to the rhythm of her clicking. Riley, I said after a moment, voice low. Thank you, she gave a short laugh. Don't thank me yet. We've got weeks of work coming. She was right. The enormity of it loomed ahead. Nights spent cataloging digital fingerprints, days spent pretending nothing was wrong, moments where I'd have to smile at the man gutting me behind my back. But the decision had crystallized. I would fight, I would gather, I would wait. And when the evidence was complete, when the board sat across from me with their quiet skepticism and careful legal postures, when Andre walked into that room confident he'd already won, I would dismantle him piece by piece. Riley tapped one last key, and a new directory appeared on the screen, mirrored Denvi V1. She leaned back, satisfied. We're in this now, she said. Both feet! I nodded, the weight of the commitment settling over me like armor. Tomorrow, she added, you'll act normal. You'll smile. You'll take meetings, and he'll never see this coming. For the first time since I heard Andre's voice in that recording, something warmed inside me. Not hope, something sharper. Resolve. The first week passed in a blur so tense and quiet it felt like breathing through a straw. Every morning I woke before my alarm, heart already thudding, mind already racing. I'd stare up at the ceiling of that hotel room, the uneven plaster, the faint water stain shaped like a crooked question mark, and feel suspended between two lives, the one where my company was still intact and the one where Andre was dismantling it piece by careful piece. Riley had flown back to Chicago that next morning, but only physically. In every way that mattered, she never left. She texted hourly, sent scripts, reviewed logs from airport lounges and her firm's lab, pinged me whenever she found something useful or something damning. By the third day, our mirror environment was fat with evidence, permissions catalogs, escalation events, calendar artifact trails, even screenshots of the transition plan he'd rehearsed. Riley labeled each item with clinical precision, color-coded folders, timestamp relatives like night of my flight or call with rival founder I3. She was building a living timeline, and watching it grow was like watching someone sketch the truth with ink that couldn't be erased. But while that happened behind the scenes, I had to live a different story entirely. Every morning, I dressed in clean lines, navy blazer, white blouse, charcoal trousers, clothes that said composed, clothes that said competent, clothes that said nothing is wrong. I attended investor meetings with a smile that sat like a bruise on my face, visible only to me. I nodded through pitches, shook hands, answered questions about scale, backlog, contracts, runway. The smell of conference room coffee thin, watery, metallic became its own trigger. Investors smiled politely, scribbled notes, nodded when I talked about 12-month payback periods and AI-driven optimization algorithms. They didn't know that while I pitched the future, my present was being quietly rewritten beneath me, and I couldn't look away from the coincidence. 3 VCs I pitched that week were already on Andre's list. The first time one of them mentioned him, Andre gave us excellent insights about your operational roadmap last month. I felt the temperature in my body drop. My smile held, my voice didn't shake, but my pulse misfired in my wrist like a warning shot. The second time, I felt my jaw clench so hard I nearly cracked a molar. By the third, I was numb. After each meeting, I'd step outside and breathe the thick New York air like it might fill the cracks inside me. I told myself not to panic. Not yet. Riley had been clear. Any sudden moves could trigger him. And if he started deleting logs or scrubbing histories now, everything we gathered could be compromised. You are playing chess, she reminded me each night on the phone. He thinks he's playing checkers. Let him. Still, the cracks widened. 2 days into the week, I got a text from Andre himself. How's the road show? Need anything? Something ugly twisted in my stomach. My thumb hovered over the screen. I forced myself to type, "Going well. Back soon." When I hit send, bile rose in my throat, because that was the first lie I'd ever told him. And now every word between us was going to be a lie. This was the cost of survival. The board chair emailed me next. "Update when you can. Want to sync with you and Andre jointly next week. Jointly." Meaning they already saw us as a pair, a unit, a leadership team operating in tandem, meaning he'd gotten to them, maybe not fully, but enough. The moment I read it, my hands went cold. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, the comforter shifting beneath my weight, and let the dread settle like a stone in my gut. That night, Riley called at 11,001 Ford. I'd been sitting in the dark, only the ambient glow from the hallway seeping through the doorframe. "Tell me everything," she said. I did. The meetings, the investor comments, the board email, the forced smile, the cold bucket of fear that dumped on me every time Andre's name appeared on my screen. She listened without interrupting, but I could hear her breathing shift, sharp, clipped, focused. "He's accelerating," she said when I finished. "He wants to get ahead of the narrative before you get home. That means we need to tighten the timeline." Tighten it? How? My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Tomorrow," she said, "you start gathering context materials, contracts, revenue projections, org charts, anything he might weaponize. We build the case from both sides, the technical and the operational." The thought exhausted me. "Riley, I don't know how much more I can split myself in two." She didn't sigh, didn't soften. She just spoke the truth. "You can," she said, "because you have to." I stared at the faint reflection of myself in the darkened hotel window, a shape more than a person, shoulders tense, spine rigid, eyes too tired. "But what if he's already ahead of us?" I whispered. "He's not," she said immediately. "Andre is arrogant, not smart. His ego will keep him sloppy, and every sloppy detail he leaves behind becomes another nail." Another beat of silence settled. "And Alexis?" she added quietly. "Yeah, you're allowed to be scared, but you don't get to stop." Those words pinned something inside me back into place, shakily, painfully, but firmly enough to hold for one more day. The next morning, I woke before the sun, my breath clouding faintly in the over-air-conditioned room. I washed my face, straightened my hair, dressed again in competence and composure. The mirror's reflection looked more like a ghost of myself than a woman preparing for war. But I gathered the contracts, I gathered the projections, I gathered the board packets, I gathered everything he might try to twist. And when I closed my laptop that night, fingers cramped and eyes burning, I knew we were ready to begin tightening the trap. But as I turned off the lamp and the room sank into darkness, a thought pressed against the back of my mind, quiet, heavy, and terrifying. Tomorrow, I would have to face Andre again. The morning hit me like a slap of cold water, too bright, too loud, too fast. I woke before my alarm, the faint chill of the overactive AC brushing along my arms, raising goosebumps. For a moment, I just lay there, staring at the textured ceiling while the city murmured through the window, distant traffic, someone shouting, the low mechanical rattle of an early delivery truck. My body felt wired and heavy all at once, the way it does after too many nights sleeping with your guard up. I forced myself upright. My muscles complained. My mind, though, already running. Today, I had to see him. Andre! Just thinking his name sent a tight, rotating pressure through my ribs, the kind that doesn't quite hurt, but makes you breathe differently. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, the carpet scratchy under my feet. The room smelled faintly like stale coffee and something chemical, maybe whatever they used on the bathroom tiles. I moved on autopilot, shower, get dressed, tie my hair back, smooth the blazer, armor up. Downstairs, the lobby's bright lights felt like interrogation lamps. The hotel served some kind of complimentary breakfast, though breakfast was generous. The coffee tasted like cardboard and old pennies. The croissant collapsed like paperwork under my fingers. I forced myself to eat half of it, if only to keep my hands busy. At 9:03 too early, my phone buzzed. Andre, safe travels back, need to sync when you land. There it was again. That casual tone, that confidence, that certainty that the world was moving exactly the way he'd shaped it. My jaw tightened as I typed back, landing at 4, we'll regroup tomorrow. A lie, but strategic. On the flight home, I kept my laptop open only to plausible files, revenue dashboards, investor follow-ups, product roadmap drafts. My real work lived inside a hidden directory Riley had coached me through creating. I could feel the mirrored evidence environment humming like a second heartbeat inside my machine. A baby cried 3 rows behind me. The man beside me snored softly, his head tilted at an awkward angle on his neck pillow. The plane smelled faintly like reheated eggs and recycled air. My thoughts, though, they kept spiraling toward what waited on the ground. As soon as the plane landed, I felt the shift in my body. Survival mode, focus sharpening, anger cooling into something steel-like. I rolled my suitcase through the terminal, that familiar hollow airport echo following every footstep. Outside, the air was warm and thick, Atlanta humidity clinging instantly to my skin. A rideshare driver waved at me, throwing my bag into the trunk with one practiced motion. The car ride felt both too fast and too slow. We passed the edges of the city, the murals, the overpasses, the clusters of mid-rise apartments, all blurring together. I tried to ignore the buzz in my chest, but it grew stronger as we merged onto the highway. When we pulled into the parking lot of my building, my spine went rigid. Andre's SUV was already there, parked in his usual spot, confident, like nothing had changed. My driver unloaded my bag. I thanked him automatically, though my voice felt distant, like it came from someone standing beside me. I wheeled my suitcase across the lobby, the soft echo of its wheels broadcasting my return. When the elevator door slid open, I stepped inside and hit the button for the 10th floor. My stomach tightened the higher we climbed. By the 8th floor, my palms were damp. By the 9th, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. The doors parted with a chime far too bright for how my body felt. The office was quiet that late in the day, humming with that late afternoon stillness when most people were already thinking about dinner plans or traffic routes. The scent of burnt coffee lingered in the air. A copier clicked in the distance. Our logo glowed in soft backlighting on the wall, blue, clean, confident. I wasn't sure I felt like the same woman who designed it. Then I heard it, the subtle, familiar scrape of a chair on carpet. My breath hitched. Andre stepped out of the glass-walled conference room, sleeves rolled up, laptop in hand. He stopped when he saw me, expression shifting into something warm, almost relieved. Alexis, he said, you're back early. His voice was smooth, friendly, that same practiced charm he used on reporters and investors. His eyes scanned my face with what could almost pass for concern. How'd the trip go? He asked. I opened my mouth, but the words stuck. My throat tightened as a wave of something. Rage, grief, disbelief pushed upward. I swallowed it. It went, I said. He stepped closer, just a few feet. Close enough to smell the faint cedar of his cologne. Close enough to see the tiny crease between his brows that always appeared when he was hiding something. We should catch up tomorrow, he said gently. A lot's happened while you were gone. All good things. I'll walk you through it. His tone was casual, but his eyes were measuring me, assessing, searching for cracks. I held his gaze and forced a smile. Of course, I said. Tomorrow, he nodded. Good. Get some rest. He walked past me, shoulders relaxed, confident in his footing. Like the world was his, like the future was already written. But just before he reached the elevator, he paused, turned. His eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, studying my face with a sharpness that cut through the air. You good? He asked. And that was the moment, the exact moment. My hand started trembling, not because of fear, because I realized he sensed something, a shift, a wrinkle in his plan. I forced my fingers still, smiled again. I'm fine, Andre. He held my gaze a beat too long. Then the elevator doors opened and he stepped inside. As they slid closed, I finally exhaled. Tomorrow, I'd walk into the office acting like nothing was wrong. Tomorrow, he'd keep feeling invincible. Tomorrow, he'd reveal just a little more. The office felt too bright, too crisp, too awake for what I was about to do. The morning sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, washing the common area in a soft gold that made everything look innocent, deceptively calm. My chest tightened as I walked toward my office, each step landing with a dull thud against the carpet. The scent of fresh coffee drifted from the break room. Someone had brewed a new pot, stronger than usual, the aroma almost bitter enough to steady my pulse. I set my bag down. closed the door, took one breath, then another. Riley's text came in exactly on time. Here, I typed back. Wait for my signal. Then I opened Slack and messaged Andre, need to walk through some server logs with you before the board sync. Can you step into my office? He responded within 10 seconds. On my way. My fingers tingled. Not from fear, adrenaline moving too fast, too hot. I straightened my blazer, smoothed my hair, then sat behind my desk, forcing my hands flat against the wood so he wouldn't see them tremble. A soft knock. Then the door opened. Andre stepped inside wearing that same navy dress shirt he favored for big meetings, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a stainless steel watch catching the light. His face carried a faint smile, controlled, professional, just a shade too warm. You wanted to see me? He asked. Yes, I said, voice steady. Close the door. The click echoed deeper than it should have. He sat across from me, crossing one ankle over his knee. Relaxed, confident. The man had no idea he was stepping straight into his own autopsy. I found something strange in the logs, I began, sliding my laptop so he could see the first screen. Can you walk me through this? His brows lifted in practiced interest. Sure. What am I looking at? I tapped the timestamp cluster. These access escalations, all happening at night. He leaned forward, squinting. Oh, that, he waved a hand. Routine failover prep. We've talked about this. I've been shoring up redundancy. That's so? I asked quietly. Yeah, he said, leaning back again. Nothing to worry about. I clicked to the next screen permission rewrites, his name tied to each. Then what about these? His jaw flexed once. Same thing. High-level tuning. I kept my voice even. Without documentation? I was going to update Confluence, he said, tone clipped. You know we've been underwater with the rollout. You removed my admin role. His eyes flicked up. Quick, sharp, temporarily, and replaced it with the role you created at 2 in the morning. He crossed his arms. Look, Alexis, you're reading this out of context. You were on the road. There were a lot of moving parts. I didn't want you distracted. A shard of rage scraped through my ribs, but I held the mask firmly in place. Distracted, I repeated. He nodded. Exactly. This is why we balance each other. You're visionary. I'm operational. You focus big picture. I handle structure. It's not a critique. It's a pattern, I said. His smile faltered. What's that supposed to mean? I clicked the next file, call logs. His voice filled the room instantly, tinny but unmistakable. The moment he heard himself speaking to Liam, his body went still. He swallowed. Okay, I can explain. Go ahead. You're misinterpreting that call. It was exploratory. Rivals talk all the time. It's healthy. Part of due diligence. Due diligence for what exactly? Future partnerships, contingencies. The company needs stability, and lately you've been spread too thin? I asked. His eyes widened just slightly. That's not. I clicked the next snippet. His voice again. She's too distracted on this fundraising trip to notice. His breath hitched. That's taken out of context. Which context makes that better? I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it. I pulled out the printed packet, thick, stapled, damning, and slid it across the desk. Explain the shadow role. Explain the transition plan. Explain the rewritten permissions. His voice cracked. You can't prove intent. A soft knock. The door opened. Riley stepped inside, phone in hand, voice calm and clear as glass. Actually, she said, she can. Andre whipped toward her, color draining from his face. You set me up. No, I said, rising to my feet. You set yourself up. I just documented it. You can't do this, he whispered. I already did. As the reality crashed over him, his shoulders folded inward, breath stuttering. His eyes darted between the packet, the laptop, the recorder in Riley's hand. The walls around him, walls he thought he'd fortified, collapsed in real time. The room felt too still after Andre's face collapsed like that, as if even the air didn't want to move until it knew what would happen next. Riley didn't break eye contact with him. He only stepped farther into the room, shutting the door behind her with a soft click that sounded more final than a slammed one ever could. The scent of her jasmine hand lotion drifted faintly into the air, mixing with the sharper cedar undercurrent coming off Andre's cologne. I could feel my pulse in my wrists, in my throat, in the tips of my fingers. Andre sank into the chair like someone had cut invisible strings. His shoulders rounded, not in exhaustion but in calculation, already scrambling for a new angle, a new way to spin this, a new narrative to sell to me or the board or himself. His mouth opened, then closed again when his voice failed. For once, silence was his only move. Riley leaned one shoulder against the wall, arms crossed, calm as if she'd just walked into a regular status meeting. So, she said lightly, would you like to start with the unauthorized permissions rewrites or the illegal recordings you didn't think anyone would find? His lips parted. Those weren't. I didn't. You can't. No, I cut in, stepping around my desk. Don't start there. Start with the part where you tried to replace me behind my back." He flinched. His voice came out small and hoarse. "I wasn't replacing you. I was trying to stabilize the company." I laughed, a short, sharp sound that didn't feel like it came from my body. "By removing the CEO? You were putting the Series B at risk," he said, voice rising with brittle urgency. "You were exhausted, unfocused." Investors were worried. I stepped in because someone had to. "Concerned investors?" I echoed. "You mean the ones you called before I even boarded the flight?" He stopped breathing for a moment. "Andre," Riley said, "we have the metadata, timestamps, device signatures, copies of copies, every trail you left behind. If you lie right now, you're lying for free." His jaw clenched. His gaze flicked between us, calculating, recalibrating, failing. "You don't understand," he whispered. "I built this with you." "And you almost stole it from me," I said. He ran a shaky hand over his mouth. "I wasn't trying to steal it. I was restructuring. Investors want operators, not visionaries. I was protecting the company." "From who?" I asked. "From me?" He swallowed hard. "From the risk of founder fragility." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice cold. "Founder fragility," I repeated. "That what you told them? That I was too emotional, too distracted? That I needed to shift into a visionary roles so you could soothe everyone's nerves?" His silence answered me more clearly than anything he could have said. Riley pushed off the wall, walked to my desk, and set down a small digital recorder. The tiny click it made when she placed it on the wood felt thunderous. "Andre," she said quietly, "before we go further, you should be aware you're being recorded, and Alexis is well within her rights. You walked into this willingly. You remained in the room after notification." His head snapped toward her. "This is entrapment." "No," she replied. "This is accountability." I leaned forward, resting my palms on the desk. "I trusted you," I said, not raising my voice but letting the truth hit him anyway. "I defended you. I gave you equity. I let you into decisions no one else even saw. And you used all of it to craft a story where the company needed saving from me." He shook his head wildly. "No, Alexis, I swear. I was doing what I thought the board wanted. They were worried about your bandwidth and—" "Don't drag them into this," I said. "We pulled their email logs too." Riley added, "No outreach, no concern, no whisper of a leadership shift. You acted alone." His breath stuttered. "My God," he murmured, staring at the floor like the carpet might open up and swallow him. "You're going to destroy me." I inhaled slowly. "No, Andre, you destroyed yourself. I'm just done pretending I don't see the wreckage." He looked up at me with something between rage and terror. "Please, Alexis, please, we can fix this. We can talk to the board together. Say this was misunderstanding. Say," I straightened, "your access is suspended." "Effective immediately." He sucked in air like someone had punched him. You can't." "I already did," I said. "HR has the termination packet ready. For cause." Riley slid the packet closer to him, the papers whispering against the desk. He stared at it like it was written in a language he'd never seen. "You set me up," he whispered again. "No," I said. "You built the whole trap yourself." "All I did was turn on the light." His breath shuddered, his shoulders sagged, and for the first time since I'd known him, the mask fell completely. Not charm, not leadership, not competence, just a man who realized too late that betrayal has a cost. He covered his face with both hands. His voice broke on the last word. "Oh God, what have I done?" "I didn't answer, because we weren't finished yet." He didn't lift his head for a long moment. The silence stretched thin, vibrating with the kind of tension that makes your skin feel too tight. Outside the glass walls of my office, the rest of the team moved quietly. Footsteps on carpet, muffled conversations, the hum of the AC running just a little too cold, all of it blurred behind the weight of what was happening right in front of me. Andre's hand stayed over his face, his chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. I watched the tremor in his fingers. Guilt? Panic? The collapse of a man who thought he'd built an airtight plan only to watch it unravel in daylight? It didn't matter. Not anymore. Riley studied him for a moment, then crossed her arms. "We need your laptop," she said evenly, "and your phone." "Company property." He didn't move. "Andre," she added, "don't make this harder." Slowly, he lowered his hands. His eyes were bloodshot, lashes wet, expression dazed in that hollow way people get when reality finally catches them. He looked at me as if he were seeing a stranger. "Alexis, I gave everything to this place," he said, voice cracking. "Every night, every weekend, every flight. I sacrificed for this." "So did I said softly. "Difference is, I didn't do it while plotting a coup." He winced, shoulders curling inward. His fingers hovered over his laptop bag, reluctant. Riley stepped forward slightly, not threatening, just present. He finally pulled out the laptop, placing it on the desk with a shaky hand. Then, his phone. The sound they made hitting the wood felt final. He wiped at his face. "I made mistakes," he whispered, "but I wasn't trying to hurt you." My breath hitched, just a fraction, but enough for me to feel it. He said it like that, made it better, like the absence of malice canceled out the presence of ambition, like intention mattered more than impact. "You don't get to decide what hurts me," I said quietly. "You don't get to decide that anymore." He pressed his palms to his thighs, grounding himself. "Please, let me speak to the board first. Let me explain. Don't kill my reputation. Don't ruin me." Riley rolled her eyes just a little. "Sir, you ruined yourself." But his gaze stayed locked on mine. "Alexis," he said again, voice low, urgent, "you don't understand what happens if this goes public. I'll never get another role. No company will touch me. I'll lose everything. You were willing to risk that for me," I said, "so you could step into my place." He opened his mouth, closed it. His throat bobbed in a hard swallow. I miscalculated. The understatement punched the air out of my lungs. I leaned forward, elbows on my desk. "Miscalculation," I said slowly, "is forgetting a meeting or sending the wrong deck to a client. What you did was sabotage." His breathing sped up. "I trusted you," I went on. "I defended you. I brought you into investor calls, gave you visibility, authority, a voice. You could have come to me if you were concerned about anything, about the company, about leadership, about me." He shook his head. "You weren't listening. And for a second, just one." The old pain stung, because I had listened to every concern, every stress point, every late-night call he made when he said the burn rate worried him, or we needed to scale ops faster, or he was drowning under hiring constraints. I had listened and adjusted and carried more weight each time. "I listened," I said, voice tight. "You just decided you wanted more." "They would have let me lead," he whispered, and there it was, the truth, the root. Riley clicked her tongue. "There it is." He looked down at his hands. "I didn't think you'd catch me." For the first time since this nightmare began, a cold clarity washed through me, clean and sharp as glass. "I always catch what's mine," I said. His head snapped up, eyes searching my face like he was looking for mercy. But mercy wasn't coming. Not today. There was a soft knock on the door. "HR representative." Right on schedule. Andre closed his eyes. I stepped back from the desk as Riley opened the door. The HR rep entered polite, composed, carrying a manila folder that might as well have been a gravestone. "Andre," she said gently, "let's step into the conference room." He stood slowly, movements heavy, defeated. He looked at me one last time, something pleading and broken flickering across his face. "Alexis, please." I didn't flinch. "This is the consequence," I said, "of the choice you made." He exhaled shakily, nodded once, and walked out between them. The door closed behind him with a quiet finality that made my knees almost give. Riley exhaled long and low. "Holy shit!" I sat back down slowly, my body suddenly heavier, exhaustion settling into me like gravity. "It's not over," I said, voice barely above a breath. "We still have the board." She nodded. "And we have everything we need." She placed the mirrored evidence folder on my desk with a soft thud. "Tomorrow," she said, "we finish this." The boardroom felt colder than the rest of the office, as if someone had deliberately set the thermostat to intimidation. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, washing the long mahogany table in sterile brightness. My footsteps echoed as I walked in, that soft thump of leather soles on carpet masking the pounding in my chest. One by one, the board members looked up from their laptops, Aaron with his tight smile, Miriam with her clipped nod, and Jasper already rubbing his temple like he expected a migraine. I set my bag on the table and kept my face neutral, controlled, unreadable. Riley stood beside me, posture crisp, her expression a mask of professional calm. No one in this room knew how much she knew, or how much she'd done to get us here. "Alexis," Aaron said, forcing warmth. "We got your note. You said it was urgent." "It is," I said. Miriam folded her hands. "Before we begin, we should acknowledge that Andre emailed us last night. He said there had been a misunderstanding." My jaw tightened. Of course he had. Jasper looked at me over his glasses. "We're all hoping that's the case." Riley's eyebrow twitched, micro disbelief. I took a slow breath, feeling the faint hum of the AC brush against my arms. "Well," I said, pulling out my laptop, "let's walk through the facts." Aaron sat back, clearly bracing. "Go ahead." I projected the first screen onto the wall. The permission logs, clean, simple, irrefutable. "As you can see," I began, "there were multiple unauthorized permission escalations over the last several weeks, all tied to Andre's credentials." Aaron frowned. That could be normal operational maintenance, Riley cut in smoothly, except these weren't documented, and they were performed at irregular hours with no corresponding tasks. She clicked to the next slide, access role rewrites. This role here, she said, tapping the screen with her pen, was created specifically to override Alexis's admin authority. The board went quiet. Jasper shifted in his seat. Override? Replace, I clarified. The role was positioned above mine. A thin line formed between Miriam's brows. I see. Riley flipped to the call logs. And then there's this. The audio clip played, Andre's voice filling the room, confident and damning. Everyone stiffened. Jasper leaned forward. Is he speaking with? Yes, I said, a founder from a direct competitor. The line played again. She'll be too distracted on this fundraising trip to notice. The temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Aaron lifted a hand. Okay, but this could still be. No, Riley said sharply. You'll want to see the next part. She clicked the slider again, pulling up the transition plan. Clean PDF snapshots with metadata attached. When the words, leadership restructuring proposal, lit up the screen, Miriam hissed a quiet breath between her teeth. You're telling me, she said slowly, he was preparing to push Alexis out. He wasn't preparing, I said. He was executing. I laid the printed packet on the table, sliding copies toward each board member. My movements were steady, but inside, I felt like a wire pulled taut. This, I said, is the timeline of his actions. This folder contains mirrored logs in case he scrubbed anything from the originals. The board members flicked through the pages. Even the sound of paper shifting felt heavy. Jasper finally looked up. This is substantial. It's intentional, Riley corrected. Consistent patterns across multiple vectors. He wasn't acting under stress. He was strategizing. Aaron opened his mouth, then closed it. His face pinched, like he was chewing on a bitter pill. Andre claimed, he said carefully, that he was acting in the company's best interest, that he feared burnout on your part. My laugh was short, humorless. By removing me without a vote? Aaron's eyes dropped. He said, Jasper added quietly, that you might have been unstable. My throat tightened, but I didn't let it show. And you believed him? No one answered. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Finally, Miriam clasped her hands, voice steady but firm. Alexis, I'm sorry. Truly, we should have looked deeper when you reached out. Riley's eyes flicked to mine. There, they seemed to say. That's your leverage. I nodded slowly. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for action. What do you propose? Jasper asked. I met each of their gazes one by one. Immediate removal, I said, for cause, full access revocation, formal notice filed, and a board statement clarifying that he acted alone, without authorization. And the legal route? Miriam asked. We'll pursue it, I said, separately. Aaron cleared his throat. All in favor? Hands rose. One by one. Unanimous. The breath I'd been holding finally left my lungs, though the release felt more like collapse than relief. Riley put a hand on my shoulder, steady, grounding. But even as the vote concluded, even as the procedural words moved forward, termination, filings, compliance, disclosure, I felt the aftershock hit me. It was over, but I wasn't okay. Not yet. Hey, because survival isn't the same as healing. The office felt unnaturally quiet after the board filed out, a hush so deep it pressed against my eardrums, like the building itself was holding its breath. The hum of the ventilation system, usually background noise, sounded louder, sharper, almost metallic. My body felt too light and too heavy at the same time, adrenaline bleeding off in slow waves that left my hands unsteady. Riley gathered the packets from the table, stacking them into a neat pile with clinical precision. You did it, she said softly. I didn't feel victorious. I felt wrung out, hollow, like someone had scooped out the inside of me and left the shell behind to finish the meeting. I don't know what I feel, I admitted, closing my laptop a little too fast. The sound snapped through the room. Relief? Anger? Exhaustion? All of it? Probably all, she said, and more. We stepped into the hallway. It smelled faintly of printer toner and someone's too strong cologne. One of the engineers, probably. A few team members passed by, smiling at me, unaware of the earthquake that had just reshaped their leadership team. Their voices drifted as they walked, snippets of conversations about tickets, deadlines, weekend plans. They didn't know. Not yet. And more than anything, I didn't want them to feel the fallout. As I moved toward my office, the weight of 8 months ahead hit me like a physical force. Because removing Andre wasn't the finish line. It was the starting gun. 2 weeks later, the regulator letters arrived. Not dramatic, not catastrophic, just formal requests for disclosures tied to internal controls and access misuse standard procedure when a C-level exec is terminated for cause. Still, the stack of envelopes on my desk made my stomach twist. Each seal felt like a reminder of what he'd tampered with. 3 days after that, the lawyers began scheduling depositions. The first one lasted nearly 6 hours. I sat in a stiff-backed chair under fluorescent lighting while opposing counsel tried every psychological lever they could pull. They asked why I hadn't caught the behavior sooner, asked whether I was emotionally compromised, asked if my leadership style created room for operational instability. But Riley's timeline, tight, meticulous, airtight, shut down every attempt. By hour 4, Andre's lawyer shifted tactics. By hour 5, he went quiet. By hour 6, he suggested settlement. I walked out of that room drained, legs trembling, head pounding. The hallway smelled like stale coffee and dust. When I reached the parking lot, I sat in my car with my forehead resting against the steering wheel until the trembling stopped. That was the first deposition. There would be 4 more. Clients called next, some nervous, some confused, some curious. The hardest was Kaiser. Their CIO, a woman with a voice like tempered steel, asked me bluntly, "Is our data safe?" "Yes," I said, "always, and I can walk you through every safeguard we're adding." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Good, we're staying with you." That one sentence made my knees weak. I almost had to sit down. Then came the fundraising fallout. The Series B didn't close on schedule. It's hard to sell operational excellence when your former COO staged a quiet coup. Some investors backed away. Others asked for more clarity or internal maturity. The phrases felt like bruises along my ribs. But 3 months later, after we rebuilt the ops layer, reinforced access policies, and hired a seasoned CFO who didn't flinch at the word forensics, a new lead investor stepped forward. We closed at $10.4 million. I didn't celebrate. Not exactly. I sat on the floor of my office at midnight with takeout noodles and cried quietly into the sleeve of my blazer. Not from joy, from relief, from survival. Even after all that, the nights didn't get easier. Sometimes I woke in the dark with my heart slamming against my ribs. Sometimes I checked access logs at 3 in the morning just to reassure myself no one else had climbed through the cracks. Sometimes I stared at my own reflection in the monitor and didn't recognize the woman looking back. But I kept going. We rebuilt. We strengthened. We grew. Riley joined us full-time 6 months later. Best hire I ever made. As for Andre, the last I heard, he was consulting for a mid-tier logistics company outside Denver. No equity, no title, no leadership track. His LinkedIn went quiet, profile updates hidden, endorsements gone. He faded, and I moved forward. Now, sometimes, when the office is quiet at the end of the day and the city hums outside my window, I think about the moment I found that recording. The shock, the grief, the tightness in my chest that felt like failure but wasn't. I think about the trap he built and fell into, about the price I paid to stop him, about how surviving isn't the same as healing. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone in the soft glow of the monitors, I whisper the reminder, I wish someone had said to me sooner, "You are not too emotional. You are not too distracted. You are not imagining the danger. You are not overreacting. You were right." And if you stayed with me through this whole story, through the betrayal, the unraveling, the evidence, the fight, then you know why I tell it.